Hello everyone and welcome to the video solution of the Unit 1 homework assignment, Kickstart My Chart. Over $2 billion have been raised using the massively successful crowdfunding service Kickstarter, but not every project has found success. Of the over 300,000 projects launched on Kickstarter, only a third have made it through the funding process with a positive outcome. Since getting funded on Kickstarter requires meeting or exceeding the project's initial goal, many organizations spend months looking through past projects in an attempt to discover some trick to finding success. For this week's homework, you will organize and analyze a database of 4,000 past projects in order to uncover any hidden trends. Using the Excel table provided, you will be modifying and analyzing the data of 4,000 past Kickstarter projects as you attempt to uncover some market trends. Before we look further into the instructions, let's look at the data. So we have our ID, our name, a little bit about the project, what the goal was, how much was pledged, what the outcome was, the country, the currency, the date of the deadline, and the date it was launched at. Now these are currently in Unix timestamps, which we will convert later. Whether the project was a staff pick, how many people backed the project, whether it was in the spotlight, and a category and a subcategory column. The first thing we want to do is use conditional formatting to fill each cell in the outcome column with a different color depending on whether the associated campaign was successful, failed, cancelled, or is currently live. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is select the outcome column and hit conditional formatting and then manage rules. As you can see, we don't have any rules currently, but we're about to remedy that. What we want to do is we want to use a classic style, format only cells that contain specific text. You want to make sure that your word is spelled correctly, otherwise it's not going to get formatted. We'll do some custom formatting. The text black and the fill green. Let's make it a slightly paler color. And we'll add a border too. And let's hit OK. Alright, next up is failed with red. Next, I will do cancelled with orange. Finally, we'll do live with blue. Alright, we have our 4 rules. Let's hit OK. As you can see, successful did get colored in. Let's scroll down. And there we go. We have cancelled in a peachy color and failed in a pink color. Maybe we should change that to red. Can change that quite easily, actually. And there you go, we have live in blue. Next up, we want to create a new column at column O called percent funded that uses a formula to uncover how much money a campaign made towards reaching its initial goal. This is a simple formula where we will divide the pledged by the outcome. So we just hit an equal sign. We have the pledged divided by the outcome. And as you can see in the formula bar, we have our E2 divided by D2. You can just hit enter. However, can't really tell that that's 137%. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some editing with that. There you go. So what I did was I just times it by 100 and then rounded it to the nearest percentage, and that's 137%. Now to fill the entire column, you see that little square at the bottom right of the cell, just double click it and everything gets filled. Alright, and in that same column, we want to use conditional formatting to fill each cell using a 3-color scale. So the scale should start at 0 to be a dark shade of red, transitioning to green at 100, and then moving to blue at 200. So we'll once again select the entire column and go to conditional formatting and manage rules. We'll add a new rule, but this time instead of using the classic style, we use a 3-color scale. Switch these all to numbers. And our numbers go from 0, 100, to 200. So this one we want to be really red, this one we want to be green, and this we want to be blue. Let's hit OK. Alright, and as you can see the format, it goes from red to green to blue. Here we go. And here is our conditionally formatted 3-color scale. As you can see, based on what number it is and based on where it falls in the range, Excel automatically calculates. So as you can see, this one has 2,702%. That is really, really blue. But since our top scale was just 200, anything past 200 is going to be the same color. Next up, we want to create a new column at P called average donation that uses a formula to uncover how much each backer paid for the project on average. So the way we do that is we will do pledged divided by backer count. Once again, this is not exactly, the best format, but instead of having to do any formatting here, what we'll do is we'll just hit this button right here and automatically it'll change the currency for us. And once again, we'll hit double click down there and all of these are nicely rounded to the second decimal place. Next up, we want to create two new columns, one called category at Q and subcategory at R, which uses formulas to split the category and subcategory column into two parts. So let's take a look. So we have this right here, this category and subcategory column. So what we want to do is we want to change it to parent category and subcategory. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a left search. So we have our search in N2 up to we get the index number of the / and we go up to there, and that's the part that we take, the left side of that. However, you see we do have that / and we don't really want that in our parent category. So what we'll do is if we do a -1, the index number, we get rid of that. Okay, and once again, we'll double click to do it all the way down. All right, now that we have our parent category, we're going to move on to getting our subcategory. And like how we used a left search for the parent category, we're going to be using a right search for the subcategory. All right, so as you can see here, we are looking at N2 again, which is our category and subcategory column. We're going all the way to the end and we're getting the length of the text in the cell, and we're searching for the / again. This time, we're getting everything to the right of the / instead of the left. And there you have television. And just like always, we'll double click to get all the way down. So if we scroll down a little, you'll see television changes to shorts. All right, so next up, we want to create a new sheet with a pivot table that will analyze our initial worksheet to count how many campaigns were successful, failed, canceled, or are currently live by category. Okay, and we also want to be able to filter by country. So what we want to do is we want to go here and we can hit Command A or Control A if you're on a Windows. Select all of the data, insert, pivot table, and we want to do a new sheet. We want to do a new worksheet and we have all the data selected already. Let's hit OK. Let's take a look at the parameters again really quickly, what we want. So we want a count of the outcome, and we want our rows to be the parent categories, and we want to be able to filter by country. So let's see. So we want a count of the outcome, but we also want the columns to be in the outcome. We want to filter by country, and we want rows to be parent categories. And there's our first pivot table. Now to get your pivot chart, you want to select the data from your table and insert a chart. So we want to do a stacked chart. And there you have your first pivot table. And as you can see up here, you have a filter by country. Unfortunately, on a Mac, you can't create proper pivot charts. So this is what it'll look like. But on a Windows, you'll have a small filter right up here to show you how to filter by chart, as you can see in the solution right here. All right, next up, we want to create another pivot table, very similar to the previous one, but instead of doing it by category, we want to do it by subcategory. So let's go back to our data. It's all still selected, so we'll do insert, pivot table, and OK. Now, very similarly, we'll do subcategory in the rows, country in the filters, outcome in the columns, and outcomes in the values. Okay, and similar to how we created the pivot chart last time. All right, and as you can see, we have an outcome by subcategory, and you can filter by country. And while you may not be able to filter directly from the chart, if you filter here in the data, the table will automatically update. Up next, we want the dates stored within the deadline and launch date to be converted to normal date. All right, so as you remember from earlier, the deadline and launch date are Unix timestamps, so we want to convert them into the correct versions. All right, so we'll create a new date created conversion and date ended conversion column, and we'll use this formula to convert the data. So Unix time is defined as the number of seconds since midnight GMT on January 1st, 1970. So for example, August 4th, 2008 at 10:08 p.m. will look like this. So that's the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. So to calculate a normal date time, in Excel, you'll do divide by 60 to get the minutes, divide by 60 to get the hours, and then divide by 24 to get the number of days. And then what you'll do is you'll add that to the date 1970, January 1st. And so that will calculate the date for which that Unix timestamp is. Our launch date is in column J, so let's start with that one. So we have our J2, which is our launch date Unix time, divide by 60 to get the minutes, 60 to get the hours, and 24 to get the number of days. So let's hit enter. Okay, so there was an error in my code, and that would be because I have an extra close parentheses right there, and thankfully Excel is pretty good at catching errors, so if you forget a parentheses or a comma or something like that, it will do it for you, and I'm just going to hit yes to accept the correction. But it's still kind of weird, right? So all we have to do is here and hit short date, and it gives us the correct date, June 22nd, 2015. And once again, double click to get the entire column. All right, so similarly, we're going to use the same thing for our date ended conversion, but we're just going to use a different column this time. All right, and there we have our date created conversion and our date ended conversion. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create a new sheet with a pivot table with a column of outcome, rows of date created conversion, and values based on the count of outcome and filters based on parent category and years. So first we want to figure out how to get the years. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new column called years, and we're going to just use a quick formula to be able to get the years. It's just going to be equal year and the cell that we want to use. And as you can see, 2015 comes up. And once again, double click, and we have all of our years. Okay, so once again, we're going to head back to the end, select all, and we're going to insert a pivot table. So let's take a quick look at what we want again. So we want the count of the outcome, months, and filters in parent category and years. So outcome here, and outcome in values also. And let's see, parent category and filters, years and filters, and we're going to do date created conversion in rows. All right, so unfortunately what just date created conversion is going to give you is every single date, like so, and obviously we want to have it grouped by month. So all you have to do is right click, group and outline, group, select months, and hit OK, and you have your pivot table, and you have your parent category and your years. Now this time, instead of doing a stacked bar chart, we want to create a line chart based on just successful, failed, and canceled. So what we're going to do also is, to make that easier for us, because we do have that live in the middle, we're going to filter these and remove live. So we'll select all of these again, insert, line with markers, and there you have it, the outcome based on launch date. And once again, you can filter by year. So if we got rid of everything, let's just take a look at 2015. You can see that, and select all again, and you see the different outcomes. So you have successful, failed, and canceled. All right, so let's take a look at the bonus. We want to create a new sheet with 8 columns. goal, number successful, number failed, number canceled, total projects, percentage successful, percentage failed, and percentage canceled, right? In the goal column, we want to create 12 rows. We want to go from less than 1,000 to greater than 50,000 every $5,000. Okay, so let's first start with creating these columns. Create a new sheet. All right, so we have less than 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, etc. So now we want to use the counters formula to count how many successful, failed, and canceled projects were created with goals within those ranges listed above. Okay, and we want to populate the number successful, number failed, and number canceled columns with this data. All right, so the formula we're using here is count ifs. So as you can see by this hover right here, it tells you exactly what we need. We have the range for the criteria and then what we want the criteria to be. So for this, we want to make sure that it's successful in the F column, and we want to see less than 1,000 in the goal column. So as you can see, when we hit enter, we get 322. We're going to use the similar formula for failed and canceled. All right, so all we need to do is we need to change that first criteria to failed and that last criteria to canceled. Now for the ones in rows 3 through 12, it's going to be similar, but just with one extra criteria. So we'll do greater than or equal to 1,000 for this one. We'll do greater than or equal to 1,000 and less than 5,000. So instead of just the 2 criteria, we're going to have 3, and these are going to be edited accordingly for each criteria. So now then for failed, this will be failed, and for canceled, the first one will be canceled, and then for each goal, the numbers will be edited. All right, so we've gone through and edited that first formula a few times. Now we have the number successful, number failed, number canceled for each goal range. Next, we want to fill out the total projects, and that's just going to be a sum across the row. Instead of having to set that out again, we can just double click and it will adjust according to the row. And then we want to find the percentage of projects which were successful, failed, or canceled based on the goal range. So we're going to have, for this percentage successful, we're going to do B2 by $E2. And now what that $sign does is it makes sure that E2 stays E2 when we want to move it across G and H. Okay, so we'll just make that a percentage. So what we'll do now is we'll just shift it across those two, and as you can see, it's still used E2 as the divisor, and we can actually double click all of these also, and as you can see, E3, it actually changed, E4, E5. Now the reason it changed is because we only put the $sign in front of the E. If we had wanted to keep E2 as the singular divisor, we would have put a $sign in front of the 2 as well. So it would have been $sign E, $sign 2. However, since we stuck with this, just the one in front of the E, it changes the rows accordingly, changes the row number accordingly, but sticks in the same column. So as you can see, all of these have the correct formulas. And last but not least, we want to create a line chart that graphs the relationship between a goal's amount and its chances at success, failure, or cancellation. We'll select this column, press and hold Control on a Windows and Command on a Mac, and select these 3 columns, and we'll insert a line chart. And as you can see, we have an outcomes based on goal line graph. As you can see, it's based on the ranges that we have and our percentages. And that is the video solution to Kickstart My Chart.